They say you only realize how fragile something is the moment it starts to crack. If you'd asked me 6 months ago to describe my life, I would have smiled and said, stable. Maybe even lucky. I had a job I loved, a husband who kissed my forehead every morning, and a little craftsman home tucked into a quiet street in Asheville, with ivy that curled around the front porch like it was hugging us. My name is Alina Moore, and until recently, I thought I had everything I ever wanted. I worked as a guidance counselor at the local high school. I wasn't saving lives or changing the world, but I was good at listening, and the kids trusted me. Every day, I helped them figure out who they were and where they were going. Ironically, I had no idea how lost I really was. My husband, Ryan, was a physical therapist, charming.com, and warm. The kind of man who remembered birthdays, made the bed without being asked, and fixed the faucet before I even noticed it was leaking. We'd been married for 8 years. And sure, we had our arguments, our boring days, our TV-dinner-on-the-couch kind of nights. But I always believed our quiet was a sign of comfort, not distance. And then there was Lily, my younger sister. She was vibrant, unpredictable, and a little chaotic. She stayed with us on and off since her art school days, crashing on our couch while figuring out what's next. I loved her fiercely. I always had. I was the big sister who took care of her when mom died, who helped her through every messy breakup and late-night crisis. To me, Ryan and Lily were the two people I trusted most in the world. We'd have Sunday dinners together, me cooking, Lily sketching on napkins, Ryan talking about the patients he'd helped walk again. Sometimes I'd catch them laughing at something I missed, and I'd smile, thinking, God, I'm lucky. I must be really lucky. And yet, lately, there was this tension I couldn't explain. Little things. Ryan being too tired more often, Lily leaving the room when I walked in, my phone mysteriously logging out of apps. I chalked it all up to stress, bad timing, maybe even hormones. Because if I had admitted what my gut was whispering, I'd have to face a truth that would unravel everything I believed about love, loyalty and family. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Asterisk, I told myself that over and over, even as the signs piled up like unanswered questions in the back of my mind. Because the truth, it doesn't scream, it whispers softly, patiently until you can't ignore it anymore. It started with Ryan's eyes. He used to look at me like I was the only person in the room. Now when we talked, he looked past me like he was listening, but already thinking of something else, or someone else. And then there was Lily. Her presence in our home suddenly felt, off. She was quieter, almost guarded. The easy closeness we used to share had been replaced by this subtle, uncomfortable politeness. Like she was afraid to say too much, or maybe that she'd say the wrong thing. One night, while cleaning up after dinner, I noticed she'd left her phone on the counter. Notifications lit up the screen. I wasn't trying to snoop. I really wasn't. But when I glanced down, I saw Ryan's name flash across her screen. You okay? Wish I could talk. My chest tightened. My hands trembled. I told myself it could mean anything. Maybe they were planning a surprise for me. Maybe he was checking on her. Maybe. But that voice, the one I kept ignoring, got louder. I confronted Ryan casually the next day. Have you and Lily been texting a lot lately? I asked, pouring coffee, pretending it didn't matter. He barely flinched. Here and there. She's going through a lot. It was the way he said it that unsettled me. Too easy. Too rehearsed. She hasn't mentioned anything, I said. He shrugged. She probably doesn't want to worry you. Lily, the girl who once called me crying at 2 a.m. over a chipped nail, now she didn't want to worry me. Something was off. Deeply off. And still I said nothing. I smiled. I kissed him goodbye. I went to work. Because the moment I admitted it out loud, even just to myself, the image I'd spent years building, my marriage, my family, my home, would begin to collapse. So I clung to denial like it was the last solid thing in a world made of glass, until the cracks finally cut deep enough to bleed. It happened on a rainy Saturday, the kind that begged for books and warm blankets. Ryan was at a sports injury seminar out of town, and Lily was supposed to be at her friend Chloe's art show in Durham. I had the house to myself, a rare, silent gift. I decided to clean. Not because it needed it, but because my mind needed distraction. Something about organizing the external always made my internal chaos feel less loud. That's when I found it. Tucked behind the cushions of the couch Lily had slept on for weeks, a small, folded receipt, Hotel Willow Ridge, Charlotte, NC, one night stay, king room to guests at 8. Last weekend. The night Lily had claimed she was at Chloe's. I stood there, frozen, the paper trembling between my fingers. I wanted to believe it wasn't what it looked like. I needed to believe it. But in that moment, 1,000 other memories came crashing down like dominoes. Ryan's sudden weekend trips. Lily's silence. Their shared glances when they thought I wasn't looking. That message on her phone, and worst of all my gut, which had been screaming the truth the entire time. I sat on the floor and stared at the receipt for what felt like hours. When Lily came home that evening, I was still sitting there, the folded slip now smoothed out on the coffee table between us. She froze in the doorway. "Alina," she whispered, voice cracking. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I simply asked, "Was it him?" Her lips trembled. She didn't speak. Silence is an answer too. She collapsed into a chair across from me, hands shaking, eyes wide with panic. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "I swear. It started as he listened to me. He was there when I felt lost. And then, I asked, my voice as still as glass. Her eyes filled with tears. "It just happened. I didn't think you'd ever know. We said we'd stop. We tried to stop." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My little sister, my husband, the two people I trusted most in the world. Together, betrayal didn't knock. It didn't ask permission. It barged in and made itself at home. And everything I thought I knew about my life suddenly felt like fiction. That night, I waited for Ryan to come home. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just sat on the couch, the receipt still on the table, like a loaded weapon, and stared at the front door. Daring it to open, it did. At 9:41 p.m., Ryan walked in, shaking the rain off his coat, looking tired but not guilty. He spotted me immediately. "You're up." I didn't answer. I just looked at him, long enough for him to know something was wrong. He glanced at the receipt, froze, his eyes met mine. "Alina. Don't lie," I said, voice steady. "She already told me." Silence. Then, slowly, he sank onto the chair across from me, like his knees had given out. "I didn't want this to happen," he whispered. "Then why did it?" My voice cracked, not from weakness, but from holding in every scream I've swallowed for weeks. "I don't know," he said. "We didn't plan it. She was just here all the time. We talked. You were so busy with work, and don't you dare make this about me," I snapped. He flinched. "That's not what I meant." I leaned forward, eyes locked on his. "You didn't just betray me, Ryan. You unmade me. You took the one person who knew me before you and turned her into a stranger." Tears welled in his eyes, but they didn't move me. "I was lonely," he said quietly, "and you thought the solution to that was my sister." I stood up, every cell in my body buzzing with grief and disbelief. "Did you ever stop to think about what this would do to me? To us? Or were you both just too busy pretending this wouldn't catch fire?" He shook his head. "We said it was a mistake. We said we'd stop. But then it happened again. And again. I tried to end it. But you didn't," I said coldly. "Because you didn't want to." He didn't deny it, and that was the worst part. I walked upstairs that night and locked the bedroom door behind me. Not because I was angry, but because for the first time in my marriage, I felt nothing at all. And that terrified me more than rage ever could. The next morning, I woke up alone in the guest room. I hadn't meant to sleep, but exhaustion had finally numbed the ache. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how I was supposed to get out of bed and go back to normal when everything normal had been a lie. Downstairs, I heard the soft clink of dishes. Ryan, pretending it was a regular Sunday, trying to mask disaster with breakfast. I didn't go down. Instead, I texted Lily, "I need time. Don't contact me." Her reply came almost instantly. "I understand. I'm so sorry, Alina. I never wanted to hurt you." I stared at her message for a long time, wondering how many times someone can say sorry before it means nothing. That afternoon, I went to Maya's house, my oldest friend, someone who knew me before I ever said I do. Her arms wrapped around me the moment she opened the door. "I don't even know who I'm more furious with," I whispered into her shoulder. "You don't have to decide," she said. "You just have to survive it." But as the hours passed, and I began to unravel piece by piece, I realized something that chilled me even deeper. This wasn't just about the affair, it was about how invisible I'd become in my own life. Later, that night, I opened Ryan's laptop, something I hadn't done in years. He used to leave it unlocked all the time, and part of me hoped he still did. He did, and that's when I saw the emails. Not just to Lily. To others, old ones, dated months back, flirtations, booking confirmations, password-protected photo folders. I didn't even try to open. The affair with Lily was the one that broke me, but it wasn't the first, it was just the one that hit closest to my heart. And suddenly, everything made sense. This wasn't a single betrayal, it was a pattern. A life he'd been living in the shadows while I watered the roots of our marriage, completely unaware that the soil had been poisoned from the start. I shut the laptop, sat still, and then, I said the words out loud for the first time. I have to leave him. The words lingered in the silence of my living room like an echo that didn't want to fade. But saying it was one thing, doing it, that was something else entirely. The next morning, I made a list. Not of things to pack, not of what to say, but of what he didn't control. It was shorter than I expected. Our house, his name was on the deed. Our savings, mostly tied to his business accounts. My car, a gift from him after our 5th anniversary. Even my therapist, his cousin. I felt like a guest in my own life. Still, I had one thing left: my job, my office at the high school, my students, my reputation. That space was mine. So I went there. Not to work. To breathe. And that's when I saw the envelope. No name. Just confidential scrawled across the front in black marker, sitting on my desk like it had been waiting. Inside was a single printed email. From Ryan. To Lily. It wasn't about the affair. It was about me. She's starting to suspect. Keep your distance for a few weeks. I'll handle the finances. She won't walk away if she thinks she can't afford to. My breath caught in my throat. They hadn't just betrayed me, they planned to manipulate me into staying. To trap me in a marriage that had already been emptied of truth. My knees went weak. I gripped the edge of the desk, fury and heartbreak crashing like twin waves. Then I saw the sticky note attached to the back of the printout. You deserve to know the whole story. Maya. Of course, my friend. The one who always knew when to push, and when to simply hand you the match and let you light the fire yourself. I drove straight to Maya's house. You knew, I said when she opened the door. She didn't deny it. I didn't want to tell you unless you were ready to see it. I sat down, shaking. I want a divorce. Her eyes lit with fierce support. Then let's get you out. But freedom, I was learning, doesn't come with clean lines and easy exits. It comes with sacrifice, with fallout. With the knowledge that the moment I said, I'm done, I wouldn't just lose a husband. I'd lose a sister too. That truth sat heavier than anything else. He could have my marriage. But Lily, she was blood. She was childhood laughter, and pinky promises, and shared closets, and whispered secrets. And yet, she had chosen him. The next morning, I met with Diane Keller, a sharp no-nonsense divorce attorney Maya recommended. Her office was sleek and sterile, with the kind of silence that felt like armor. I liked it immediately. After reviewing the evidence emails, the hotel receipt, and the printout Maya had left me, Diane looked up and said, "He's been careful, but this is enough to start. Are you ready for what this means?" I nodded. More than ready, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. That night, I told Ryan. I waited until he sat down at the kitchen table, his usual spot, where he used to read the paper and talk about his day like nothing in the world could touch us. Now, it felt like a stage I was stepping onto. "I'm filing for divorce," I said. He looked up, stunned. "Alina, no more lies. No more waiting. I know about the other women, not just Lily." His eyes darkened. "Where are you getting this from, Maya? She's poisoning you against me." I blinked. "You did that yourself." He stood, hands clenched. "You're overreacting. We can fix this. I made mistakes, but I cut him off. You made choices." He fell silent. "I won't be your placeholder anymore, or your shield, or your alibi." His voice dropped. "You'll destroy everything." "No," I said, steady. "You did." The next blow came from someone I didn't expect. My aunt, Claire, the only family we had left since our parents passed. She called me that evening. "Alina, Lily just told me what's going on. Divorce, are you sure that's not too extreme?" "Extreme," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "She slept with my husband." "She's your sister," Claire said gently. "You two have always had a bond." "No. I had a bond. She had a secret." A long pause. Then, "I just don't want you to throw your life away over something that could be forgiven." Forgiven. That word used to mean something to me. Now it felt like a chain. I ended the call and stood alone in my living room. Surrounded by furniture we picked out together, memories now soaked in betrayal, But for the first time in weeks I didn't feel lost. I felt done explaining, done justifying, done shrinking myself so others could feel comfortable. Let them talk, let them twist the story. Let them call me cold or unforgiving, because this wasn't about making peace anymore, it was about making space. But I never imagined what would rush in to fill the silence I left behind. 3 days after I filed for divorce, I came home from work to find a letter taped to my front door. Notice of temporary injunction pending property review. Inside, the house was quiet, too quiet. Ryan had moved out that morning. But not before freezing our joint accounts and filing a motion with his lawyer claiming I was emotionally unstable and erratic, using my journal entries from years ago as part of his evidence, the same ones I had shared with him during my anxiety episodes. The ones he said made him admire how honest I was. I stared at the papers in disbelief. This wasn't a breakup, it was war. I drove to Diane's office, hand trembling as I passed her. The documents. He's building a case, she said, scanning the pages. A dirty one. But it's all lies, I said. I haven't done anything that doesn't matter, she interrupted. He's trying to create doubt. Control the narrative. My voice cracked. How is he allowed to do this? Diane leaned forward. Because people like him count on people like you to stay quiet. I swallowed hard. That night, I packed a bag and went to Maya's. The house felt too heavy with his shadow still in it. I'm losing everything, I whispered to her. Not just him, my home, my name, my dignity. Maya didn't flinch. Then it's time to take it back. The next morning, I received another blow. The school board had been contacted, an anonymous tip claiming I was emotionally unfit to advise students during a divorce. A formal review of my position was being scheduled. I knew exactly who had made the call. Ryan wasn't just trying to win, he wanted to erase me. I sat in the school parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, tears pressed behind my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. I had fought so hard to be composed, reasonable, fair, and where had that gotten me? Alone, cornered, under attack. I thought I'd already faced the worst, but standing there in the ruins of my name, my career, my peace, I realized something else. This wasn't the worst yet. The worst was still coming. And when it did, I'd have only one final choice left. I just didn't know it would arrive with a smile. The morning of my disciplinary review at school, I stood in front of the mirror, trying to look composed like I wasn't unraveling inside. My hair was pulled back, makeup neutral, blouse pressed, but my eyes, they told the real story. I walked into the boardroom and saw them 5 members I'd worked with for years, now staring at me like a stranger. At the end of the table was the superintendent, and beside her, Lily. My stomach dropped. She wasn't just there, she was smiling. It didn't take long to understand. She had come forward as a concerned family member, claiming I had emotional outbursts, obsessive behavior, and had been inappropriately controlling of Ryan during their transition. They were calling my marriage a stepping stone. I sat there, frozen, as Lily's voice filled the room with false concern. She needs help, she said softly. I just want her to get better. I didn't speak, because if I had, I would have screamed. That night, I lost my job. They called it a leave of absence pending further review. But we all knew what it meant. I walked out into the parking lot, the sky dimming above me, the ache in my chest threatening to pull me apart. My career, my identity, my future, gone. And for what? Because I trusted too deeply. Because I believed love meant safety. Because I thought family meant something. I sat in the car and let the tears fall. Not quietly this time, but in broken, gasping waves. Grief, rage, humiliation, despair. It all came pouring out like it had been waiting for permission. I had nothing left, no husband, no sister, no job, no reputation, just the pieces. And then, something inside me shifted. It didn't feel like strength. Not yet. It felt like clarity. I had spent weeks trying to survive with grace, with dignity, with restraint, but they weren't playing fair. They weren't playing kind, so why was I? The world they tried to bury me in. They forgot I was soiled on now. It was time to grow something they could never take from me. And I was done waiting for someone to hand me permission. The very next morning, I called Diane. I want to fight back, I said. But not the way they expect. She was quiet for a moment, then replied, then we'll do it your way. But Alana, if we go forward, we go all in. No more protecting their names. No more holding back. I don't want to destroy them, I said, my voice calm. I just want to stop disappearing. We started with the legal paperwork, counterclaims against Ryan for financial manipulation and misrepresentation. Diane pulled bank records, transactions, and even subpoenaed his business accounts. And what we found? He had been draining our joint savings for months. Worse, he had transferred large chunks into a shared account with Lily, the woman who once borrowed $20 from me to buy groceries was now funneling my life's savings into her personal escape plan. I should have been livid. But oddly I felt clean, like seeing everything clearly finally rinsed away, the last of my confusion. While Diane worked behind the scenes, I started rebuilding. I launched a small online support group for women going through betrayal. I didn't use my name at first, just called it the Second Life Circle. Within a week, there were 37 members. By week 3, over 120. They didn't know my story, but they felt it. Then something unexpected happened. One of my former students, Claire, reached out. She was now an intern at a local podcast called Truth After Midnight, a space for real stories of recovery after loss. I've been following your group, she said. Would you ever consider telling your story anonymously on the show? At first, I hesitated. But then I thought about everything I'd lost trying to protect people who never protected me. Yes, I said. Let's talk. That podcast aired 2 weeks later. I didn't name names. But anyone who knew me knew exactly who it was about. It didn't take long before the ripples started. Clients began dropping from Ryan's clinic. Mutual friends started calling me, apologizing for believing his side. And then Lily texted me, "Why would you humiliate us like that?" I stared at her message, then typed back, "You humiliated yourselves." I just stopped covering for it. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I slept through the night. Not because it was over, but because I had finally taken back the pen. And this time, I wasn't writing apologies, I was writing closure. The podcast had gone viral in ways I never expected. Strangers emailed me. Women from different cities shared their own stories. One wrote, "I didn't think I had the courage to walk away until I heard your voice shake. When you said you were done protecting people who never protected you, it reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten. There is power in being seen. Even if the people who should have seen you first were the ones who turned away." A week after the podcast aired, Ryan requested a meeting. In person, I agreed. Not for him, but for me. We met at a quiet cafe near the courthouse. I wore black, not for drama but because it made me feel solid, grounded, like nothing could bleed through. He looked tired, thinner, like the walls had started to close in on him. "To Alina," he said, eyes searching mine. "I didn't think it would end like this." I stirred my coffee. "You thought it would end with me looking the other way." Again, he swallowed. "I didn't come here to argue." "Good, I'm not here to listen." He paused. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry for everything. Not just Lily. All of it." "I believe you," I said. His eyebrows rose. "But your apology doesn't fix it," I continued. "It doesn't rebuild what you tore down while I was busy defending your name to people who were already laughing behind my back." He opened his mouth, closed it. I stood up, dropped a $10 bill on the table, and looked him in the eye one last time. "I hope you learned something from this." "Because I did." "What's that?" he asked quietly. I smiled. "That I was never the weak one in this story." And with that, I walked out. No tears, no anger, just silence. And this time, it was mine, my silence, my ending, my beginning. In the weeks that followed that final conversation with Ryan, something unexpected happened. The world didn't fall apart. The sun still rose every morning. My coffee still tasted like home, and the small things like folding clean laundry or buying fresh flowers started to feel sacred again, not because anything had changed on the outside, but because I had. For the first time in years, I wasn't tiptoeing around someone else's moods. I wasn't questioning my instincts or shrinking to make others more comfortable. I could breathe, without waiting for the next betrayal to drop like a stone. My therapist, a new one, this time, not related to Ryan in any way, asked me during a session, "What's something you've done recently that made you proud?" I had to think. Not because I hadn't done anything, but because for so long, I'd measured pride through someone else's approval. Then I smiled. "I opened my first webinar last night," I told her. 62 women attended. All of them, survivors of betrayal. All of them ready to rebuild. She paused. then said something that stuck with me. Maybe your pain didn't destroy you. Maybe it redirected you. And she was right. The podcast had led to interviews. The interviews led to writing requests. And suddenly, the Second Life Circle wasn't just a support group, it was a movement. I wasn't famous, but I was finally heard. I didn't speak to Lily again. Not because I hated her, but because I loved myself more than the version of me who used to keep opening a door she kept slamming shut. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about a conversation. Sometimes it's about walking away and choosing peace. And Ryan, the divorce was finalized last week. He didn't fight in the end. Maybe he knew there was nothing left to fight for. Maybe he was tired of lying. Maybe he realized I wasn't coming back. But by then, I wasn't watching anymore. Because I was too busy building the life I should have been living all along. And the strangest part, I didn't even miss the old one. The carefully curated photos on the walls. Not the Sunday brunches that masked resentment. Not the late nights wondering if the silence meant something. Or everything. I was free. But more than that, I was full of truth, of purpose, of peace. The court documents arrived in a plain white envelope. Finalized, stamped, over. I stared at the papers for a long time. Not because I doubted the decision, but because I finally understood what it meant. It wasn't just a divorce, it was a declaration that I chose myself. That I didn't settle for crumbs when I was meant to feast. That I would never again beg to be loved properly. That night, I stood on my balcony as the sky shifted from blue to gold, and I allowed myself to remember the way Ryan used to hold my hand during movies, the way Lily used to braid my hair before school, the way I used to believe love was something I had to earn. I cried, but not from sadness, from release, because grief isn't always about who you lost. Sometimes it's about mourning the version of you that tolerated less than you deserved, and when the tears dried, something remarkable happened. I smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had survived everything that tried to convince me I wouldn't. In the end, they didn't break me, they revealed me, and I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of being alone. Not of starting over. Not of what people might say. Because this time, the story belonged to me, and I let go not to forget, but to finally move forward.